Hey, what's happening, guys, and welcome back to the channel. And we are leaving for Moab in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from today. So what I'm going to do this afternoon and this beautiful Saturday is it's time to tear in to the Blue Pecan and see what's going on back there. So I'm going to start with the rear end first. We will get it up on some jack stands, give the wheels a spin, make sure we don't have any bent flanges, make sure there's no axle shaft issues. We're going to look for some leaking axle seals. We'll take a look at all the seals, get everything cleaned up nice, of course. Then we'll get the torque wrench out and we'll start torquing things down on there, make sure all of our control arm bolts, brake bolts, track bar bolts, whatever we can find. Make sure everything is torqued to spec, and then put it all back together. And then in the next video, we'll tackle the front end. So let's get started. Alrighty guys, well, we've got the Jeep up in the air, and what we're going to do here is the driver's side rear tire. We'll go ahead and give her a spin, and what we're looking for is any wobble that we can see. That's going to tell us that we either have a bent flange or possibly some sort of deformity in the axle shaft. Not likely, usually it's going to be a flange, but we're hoping that we don't see any sort of a wobble. So let's give it a try. I'm gonna say we're looking pretty darn solid on the driver's side. Let's go over to our passenger side. Alrighty, same thing here on the passenger side. Kind of like I'm spinning the big wheel on Price is Right. Try that one more time. Ladies and gentlemen, there is one crisis averted. We do not have bent axle shafts or flanges. All right, so thumbs up on the wheel spin exercise. Everything looked to be pretty darn true. So I don't think I have any issues with the rear axle shafts. The flanges are pretty straight. So now let's get the wheels off and see what's going on underneath. We'll dig a little bit deeper. All right, so once we got the wheel off, I got a much easier view of kind of what's going on down here. And so first thing I'm looking for is moisture. Is anything leaking? Are there fluids anywhere? Aside from it being pretty dirty under here, obviously, because I do take this thing off-road. Yeah, shock is filthy, probably wipe that off. But yeah, I don't see any fluid running down the shock, so you know, I don't have a blown shock. I'm not seeing any fluid here near the axle tube, where the outer axle would kind of have that seal. Everything looks pretty dry inside, so nothing is wet, which is good. It's filthy, that's for sure. We definitely need to clean this up a little bit. Something that was a bit of a red flag is looks like I've got, this is either a wheel speed sensor or ABS sensor, something going on in here. But this is right here on top of the bump stop, and it looks like it's kind of flat. So at some point it's probably been shifting and possibly be getting smushed underneath these rubber bumps. So we're gonna have to relocate this out of the way. This is rock light wire, and this shouldn't be hanging loose like that. So we're gonna get that tied up and out of the way. But other than that, passenger side, it's looking pretty good. Okay, moving over here to the driver's side, and pretty much the same exact story. I mean, everything looks pretty dry. It's dirty. Definitely got a lot of dirt and gunk on the brakes. So I'm surprised that they're not making any noise, but I haven't had any brake squeals or anything like that. Here's that ABS line again, sitting right on top of this bump stop. So that one's definitely getting crunched by the rubber stopper there. So yeah, we are going to find a way to get him out of harm's way. But other than that, everything looks good. Brake lines look fine. There's no fluid or moisture on the shocks, no fluid or moisture coming from the axles. So that looks fantastic. Let's take a quick look at the diff.
All right, so taking a look at the differential again, other than just being dirty, everything looks good. I mean, it's clean, there's no fluids leaking out. You know, just got a few battle scars under here already on our Metal Cloak diff diaper. Everything looks good. The breather tube's fine. The axle, the locking bulkhead for the ARB airline is fine. Looks good. The diff breather tube is up and located out of the way where it's supposed to be. And yeah, so far the back end is looking great.
Alright, so I got underneath there with some water, some brake cleaner, got everything kind of cleaned up, and we did address the issue of those wires that were kind of in the way. I did a little bit of relocation to get those out of the way, and so now it's time to get under there with the torque wrench. So it doesn't take very long to search the internet and find the torque specs for the Jeep that you need, and so that's what I did. Went out and got all these. So we're going to start with the rear suspension and the brakes, and we'll go ahead and get underneath there and torque everything. Now you guys might be aware that the Bluebicon is running on 1.5-inch Spider Tracks spacers, and so typically you torque these down to between 95 and 100 foot-pounds when you're putting these spacers on there. You do have red Loctite in there, so you really don't want to break that Loctite free. So I'm going to set our torque wrench to 93 pounds here, and that should be just enough to double check, make sure that these are tight, but not to break that Loctite free, which we do not want to do. Okay. All right. Yep. Solid. Lower shock mounts in the rear. We have 56 foot-pounds. 56 pounds. Looking good. Hopefully we'll hear a click at 125 pounds. That's pretty good. I think we are solid. All right, now we'll get the rear uppers. That's good. All right, try and get the rear lower here. That one's loose. That's why we check them. That one was a little bit loose. Yep, that one's good. Okay, control arms are done, shocks are done. Now we're going to take a peek at this truck bar bolt. 21 millimeter. Give it a crank here. That one's a little loose. It's a lot loose. All right, 25 pounds. Here we go. Always good to check. All right, let's get the frame side now. Okay, track bar bracket, good. All right, let's see, 55 here. Let's see what we're looking at. That's good at 55. Got a good pull. guesstimate. Well, I weigh 180 pounds, so I'm going to say that's at least 55. You're pretty good there. Alrighty guys, we're pretty much finished with the back end here. There are no Zerk fittings at all back here, so I don't really have anything to grease, which is kind of nice. So that ended up making this kind of a short day today, but you know, put some brake cleaner on there, got this cleaned up a little bit, rerouted the ABS lines, and of course we torqued everything down. All the control arms are back into spec. A few of them were a little bit loose. Same thing with the track bar bolt. That one was a little bit loose. Brake bolts are all good, so that's a good thing. And brake lines look fine. Everything else looks fine. So yeah, time to throw the wheels back on. We'll get her back in the garage, and then part two is going to be the front end. So the front end side obviously is going to be a little bit more labor intensive. There's a lot more moving parts. You've got the steering that you're dealing with up here. So yeah, we're going to be looking at all this fun stuff under here, and there's a lot to look at. Yeah, so stay tuned for the next video.